Hey guys, my name is Haley and I will be doing my Authorathon wrap-up today. Authorathon was a newer readathon, I believe, hosted by Sam from Thoughts on Tomes and Joanna from Joanna Souza. I will link their channels down below if you would like to go and check them out, and let's get into what I read this past week. So the first book that I read was Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson, and I read this for the challenge of give an author a second chance if you didn't particularly love the previous book of theirs that you've read. And the only other book of hers that I've read was Since You've Been Gone. And I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it, and I was very confused as to why that's a lot of people's favorite Morgan Matson book. But I absolutely adored this book so much. Like, I have Goodreads updates through the entire time I was reading it, and I read it in like a couple hours on the first day of the readathon, I think, or sometime early on. And I cried so many times. It was so sad. It was so heartbreaking. It was so well written, which was a problem I had with Since You've Been Gone. I felt like it wasn't that interesting of a story, or maybe I just didn't like the character, I don't know. But I loved Taylor in this, and I especially loved her dad and her whole family. And just, this is by far my favorite of hers that I've read. And I can't wait to read her other book, Amy and Roger's Epic Detours. So yeah, that was the first one. The second book that I read was House on Fire by Antonio and Cristel Baldovinos. I think that's how you pronounce it. This is actually a Christian book, and it's about how to bring God into your family life and stuff. And the only problem that I had with this was a lot of it is geared towards married couples. And I am not married, I am not in a relationship, so that was a little bit like, okay, but that doesn't apply to me. But if you take it with applying it to relationships in general, I think it's a very useful book. And this is actually an art copy that I won in a Goodreads giveaway last year. And I used it for the challenge of read a 2015 or 2016 debut novel, and I believe this is their debut. So, yep. Then I decided to be ambitious and pick up The Cuckoos Calling by Robert Galbraith, or J.K. Rowling. And I had an issue getting into this in the beginning, but I think that might be because I don't really read adult, like, mystery, Sherlock Holmes-esque things, which is what this really is. And it did take a while, but once I got into it, I thought it was fantastic. Like, I loved the character descriptions. I loved all the characters. What is his name? Cormoran Strike. I'm in love with him. He's one of my new favorite fictional characters. I can't wait to read the rest of the books in this series. I loved his new secretary. It's been a while since I've read this, so I'm going to check for her name. I don't think it's in here. I don't remember her name. But she was fantastic, and I'm really excited to see how their friendship evolves over the rest of the series. And I'm actually really glad that this readathon made me read this, because I used it for a book by your favorite author, being J.K. Rowling, obviously. And I also used it for author from a different continent, because I'm from the US and J.K. Rowling is not. So I'm really excited to get into the rest of the series, and I'm glad that this readathon gave me a push to continue on. So yeah. And then the final book that I read for this readathon was Beautiful Creatures by Cami Garcia and Margaret Stoll. And this book was very confusing for me to rate and judge what I thought of it, because I really liked the characters. I really liked Ethan. I really liked Lena. I really liked Lena's family. I thought they were really interesting. And Ridley was really interesting, her cousin, I believe she is. But this book, if you look at it, is so long. Like, it's over 500 pages, and it was not what I expected. Like, I didn't know that this world was about basically witches. And there was a lot of, like, Civil War aspects to it, which is just not something I usually read or am really that interested in when it comes to, like, history. And I don't know, like, I thought I was bored throughout the book, but it turns out that I was actually really enjoying the characters. Like, at points I was like, oh, I don't know if I really care what's going on. And then something would happen and I would be like, oh, these characters are like, I love Ethan and Lena's relationship. And because the book was so long, it helps, like, make their relationship more believable because it takes place over a long period of time. So it wasn't insta-lovey or anything like that, which I usually get really annoyed with. And by the end of it, like, the last maybe 50, 100 pages, I was like, what's going on? Like, what's gonna happen? And I ended up, I think I gave it a 3.75 on Goodreads because I was struggling to come up with a star rating. And I am going to continue with the series because I do own the rest of the books, but I've also heard not great things about the rest of the books, but I've also heard not great things about this book, and I did end up liking it once I decided that I really did care about the characters. But I have heard a big spoiler for, I believe it's the third book, so I'm a little bit scared to read the rest of the series, and I don't know where it's going to go. But yeah, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. And I am going to continue with the series, so. And I read that for book by more than one author and a new to me author, because I've never read anything by either of those authors. So yeah, that was my Authorathon wrap-up. And I don't think I'm really going to read anything for the next couple of days, just because I'm feeling a little bit burnt out. Because I did do 2 readathons this month and read, like, I don't even know how many books, too many for 1 month, I feel like, because I read 2 whole series. So I think I'm going to take a bit of a break for the end of April. And I'm actually planning on starting or rereading the Pendragon series by DJ MacHale. I actually have a bind-up of the first 2 books over there. And I'm excited because that series has always been one of my favorites, and I'm really excited to see if it still holds up, and I hope it does, because I've always told people that was one of my favorite series, the Pendragon series. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully. Bye!